Hi, Leanie. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful, Mary, and how are you?
I'm doing great. Yesterday, you and I met with our committee about the Women's Conference, which is coming up again in September. So we're already starting to work on that, which is exciting, I think. It's
Yes,
pretty.
very
We
exciting.
worked on our vision
Mission-
and mission
vision
statement.
Vision and mission statement.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
And it was great. It
Yes,
was
it really
really
was.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But the coincidence was just before we went into that meeting, I look over and there is Linda Daly taking care of someone's dog, walking a dog right by the house we're about to go into. And she's our illustrious guest today. So, Linda, thank you so much for being with us
Well,
today.
thank you so much for having me. Again, my being here today is another happenstance when we ran into each other at Diane Tempest's birthday party.
Yes.
And we started chatting, and two beers in, I don't remember what we were chatting about, but I think I was being very, very prophetic.
You were.
As I sometimes can be. And that's when you invited me to do this. So it was like, I don't know if it was before Thanksgiving, probably.
I think it was before the holidays.
Definitely before Christmas, that's for sure. But, it was, and I thought about it quite a bit. And I thought to myself, can I actually do this? Well, as long as, I'm not like doing this in front of more than two people, I think I can be a lot calmer. I'm not one for the spotlight, okay? You'd actually have to have Kathy Stevenson for that. She's a spotlight personality and a great one too. But yeah, so that's two coincidences.
Yeah, two coincidences. And I don't believe in coincidence.
No.
Things
That's
happen
what told me
for a
this
reason.
was the right thing for me to do, and this is the right time to do it.
Oh, perfect. Well, let's begin with where you were born.
I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Oh my gosh, you've come quite a distance.
We lived in Hoboken at the time, and the closest hospital was in Jersey City, and it was called Christ Hospital, which I think is actually still standing. And we lived on Washington Street in some kind of dorky, dinky little apartment, and I had an older brother, Steve, who has passed away, as my parents have, and we lived 5 or 6 doors away from Frank Sinatra's mother.
Oh my gosh.
Never saw the guy. Well, I was, little and everything, but so we stayed there until they bought a house in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, okay, which quite frankly is was one of the highest rated high schools on the East Coast, where my brother went to school, and I went to grammar school there and everything. But so that's where I came from. This is where I am now, and there's a very long story in between that I will try not to belabor too much, or you'll run out of battery there. So where would you like me to start from there?
Well, tell us a little bit about your childhood.
My childhood was one hell of a traumatic experience.
Oh,
It was the 9th to the 10th to the 15th circle of hell.
Oh my God.
It took so long for me to even wrap my head around the things that I was put through. My mother, God rest her soul, and I hope she has found peace, had severe depression issues and serious paranoia issues, and she was an alcoholic. My dad didn't want to be anywhere near that, and he had a second family, which it took a long time before that even became obvious. I think I was about 10 or 11 years old when his girlfriend showed up at our house looking for him.
Oh my gosh.
Why I'm laughing is that you should have seen my mother grab that knife and chase her up the street.
Oh.
She didn't catch her because she got in the car and took off. But so she could go off like that. And so the house was filled with so much tension and so much
Fear.
The fear, I still feel it today. Okay, from where I am now to where it started has been, a huge come down of it. But I don't sleep. I never really have had a real home, because we before we left the childhood home that I was raised in, things had gotten so much worse in the house. My mother worked for Maxwell House Coffee on an assembly line, putting together those tin cans that they put the coffee in. And they were, she used to have to wear like almost stiletto high heel shoes standing on that line. That's what was expected of women back then.
Oh my
to
God.
dress like that.
Wow.
Okay.
Even on a line like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was in part more her choice than not, Um, but all I know is that don't ever do that because she had knee problems like you wouldn't believe later on in life. And my father he worked for a small company as a bookbinder. Um, anyway, there was always turmoil in the house. And they would fight. They worked different schedules so that their paths didn't cross very often. And I never had a room of my own as a kid. Moving into that house, there was an attic up there, and one of the sides was supposed to be converted into a bedroom, and my brother would have gotten the nicer bedroom, and I would have gotten his tiny little cupboard, but it would at least have been mine. But I ended up sleeping on a pullout in the bedroom, in the living room, which was really uncomfortable when you're trying to sleep and somebody decides they want to watch TV at 11 o'clock at night. So I don't think I've ever known a full night's sleep in my life. So,
Not even now?
A little bit more now than before. I'm tired a lot, but I'm also 75, so I tire a lot easier. But the thing is that all I ever felt was constant fear and anxiety. And one of the things that took me a long time to understand this was that when an infant or a child does not have a bonding experience, especially with their mother or a parent or a closeness with a sibling, you really don't know how to interact in the world no matter how much you try. So for me to even be a part of things, part of me is there and part of me, but a bigger part of me is not, because I don't know how to do it.
Can you describe how that feels and what that looks like for you?
Okay, I'll give you an example of when I was a kid, and it's very, I think it might be a better picture than me trying to find words. There was a neighbor next door, and they had gotten one of those above ground pools, and it was like the place to hang out, And I always played with the boys and the girls in the neighborhoods and the houses surrounding me. And so when the time came for everybody to go over to pool, I was not invited. And I didn't understand why. So it was like I sat on the stoop on the kitchen, outside the kitchen door, and I just watched everybody. It took, I don't even know how long it was before I learned that the reason that I was not included was because if anything happened to me, nobody wanted to deal with my mother.
Oh,
they didn't want the responsibility.
Oh, okay.
And once I understood this, see, it still makes me a little weepy to even talk about it, But when I used to think about it, all I could do was just cry. It's like having your nose pressed up against the pane of the window and just watching the world.
Right.
And you see and you envision that, you're a part of it, but you're really not there. You only think about what you would say or do if you were there. And, people aren't always, in having been bullied through schools, something awful. There was like nowhere I could turn where I had a friend. The nurse used to let me come down when it got to be too much in class. I could go down in the nurse's office and I'd fall asleep. And she'd let me stay there as long as she could, which wasn't always very long. And by the time the next, class came, I had to go back. But, it was a generation where these things really didn't happen. And if they happened to you, there was something wrong with you. It was your fault. You're born to bad people, so you have to be a bad person too, built by association. And that just erodes the soul. And so there were I could give you a couple of really bad experiences. I'll give you one. My dad left when he found out his girlfriend was pregnant. And he, unbeknownst to, anybody except him and his girlfriend, he hadn't paid the mortgage on the house.
Where you were living?
Yeah. So my mother was so off the wall that night, this one particular night. She not only locked all the doors, she nailed them shut, and she nailed the windows shut, and she had all the lights on in the house. She was blaring country and western music. She was ironing, and she was eating ice cubes relentlessly. I'm in that living room bed that I'm sleeping in, and I just kept my eyes closed. So like now, the room is lit, like my house was lit. But if you were to get up and come near me, I would see a shadow. And that's what happened. And I opened up my eyes, and she's standing over me with this knife. And she looked at me and she said, "I'll kill you before I'll let the devil have you." And if there was ever the phrase, the hand of God stepped in, that happened. Okay? And from that point on, I think there are these traumatic experiences that happen to people. Sometimes it's even older, where once something just kind of snaps your psyche a little bit, you become frozen in time. Your body gets bigger, your age gets older.
Unless you get...
But I was 11 years old, and I was 11 years old most of my life. So being out there in the workforce, I acted like an 11-year-old battered child, which is what I was.
May I ask, why did she nail the doors and the windows?
Oh, she believed that my father had hired a hitman to come and kill us. I don't know what to call her, a paranoid schizophrenic, but that woman was so broken. And she's another example. She was 18th of 19 children, so who are you going to bond in that kind of a household? She did not know how to interact socially either. I had to learn everything basically by watching other people. But then I became them, and I wasn't me. I didn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so it's like mimicking other people's behavior just to survive. And that's all my life has ever been, is about survival. I couldn't finish school. I tried to go back to community college after I got my GED. And I took writing courses because I actually majored in English. And I really hate texting because it's such an abuse of the English language. I can't stand it. And I could never get anywhere. I took a writing class, and at that time I was going to a group called Adult Children of Alcoholics. And that was about the only place where I found people like me. And we were given a writing assignment, so I wrote about that. And it was painful to write. It was, imagine you're doing the most painful, putting something down on paper that is one of the most painful experiences. Then you've got to quote people. You have to do a bibliography, and I'm going, oh my God, my head was about to explode. And part of the time when I was writing it, I was visiting my aunt and uncle in Pennsylvania, and my mother was staying there. So writing it around her was unbearable.
Must have been difficult.
It was like flames shooting out of my head. So I wrote about it, and I turned it in, and I got an A. And the teacher came up to me, and he said, "Thank you for this. I was wondering what was wrong in my life."
Wow.
He said about himself.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Was that a turning point for you then?
Well, it should have been. What it did is make me leave class. I freaked out. And don't even ask me why, I don't know. I did it in another class too, and I challenged the professor on the philosophy course. And he said I gave the wrong answer, and I, not argued with him, but argued the point, from my perspective. And he went home and he thought about it, and he came back and he said, "I see what you were trying to say, and I'm going to change your grade. I'm going to give you that." And I left that class too. The only thing I could think of as to why I did those two things, and it wasn't the first time I did it, something like that. I felt so exposed. And
so vulnerable.
And exposed in the expectation that what if I couldn't do it again, kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
And I lived a life of not wanting to be seen. Otherwise, I'd be hurt. I wanted to be invisible. So I made myself invisible. Excuse me. So time marches on, and I go to high school, which was no better. Grammar school was okay. because I had grown up with most of the kids that were in the school, so it wasn't like I went to some foreign place. But before I went to high school, the junior high. That's when the sheriff came and locked up her house, and I came home and I couldn't get into my own house. So I just sat on the curb. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And my neighbors next door, they the mom, very strict Italian Roman Catholic people, came out and she held me back up, took me to her house, and you go into her house, every piece of furniture had that thick plastic on it.
Yes, yes.
Then you get stuck too.
Yes, exactly. And it was, I think it was like warm weather. So she said, just lay down. And I laid down, I fell asleep, and I was awakened by my mother screaming. And then we were just locked out. And he took care of all the bills, and he was diverting the money to his new family. So he was gone, the house was gone, all my things were gone, and we ended up in a motel, and I said, please don't nail the door shut, it's the only way out. And she said, I'm going to stay awake and watch over you, and then I'll wake you up, and I'll go to sleep, and you watch over me, and this way nobody can hurt us. I'm 11 years old.
Wow.
And only, the stories don't get much better, okay? They can only get worse, okay? So I don't want to belabor too many of them because they were broken people. And I don't want it to sound like I'm blaming them, but yes, of course, I did blame them in the beginning for my life. And I did try. I went to therapy, I got involved in New Age things, and I tried to work in the workforce, and I never really could hold a job longer than 5 years. And then I had gotten agoraphobia, and I couldn't come out of the house at all. So these are the type of things that any traumatized child will go through. This is why when I see these kids, it breaks my heart. I feel so damn helpless, because even if you give them comfort, there is just no way to make it go away. Your journey is about finding a way to get yourself through it and find answers you can live with, solutions, to keep you from falling back. But before you can arrive at those, you have to do a shadow walk. You have to do shadow work. And that's hard. I don't know if anybody, out there has ever really done it, but it is excruciating. I screamed all the time. I threw things all the time. You've never really heard, you've heard my potty mouth, but you've never really heard my potty mouth. The thing that got me through it were my cats, because they would come and they would comfort me. The only creature I've ever bonded with in my life were animals. When you touch them, you can feel the love just flow from them into you, and the joy. And then when they, curl up around your neck and throw their paws over you, or when, like, Bonita wakes me up in the morning and she's doing this to my nose with her, I said, get that thing you wipe your ass with out of my face. Animals are here for us to be used in a helpful, light way. The way I've never seen so much animal neglect as I see down here. Animal abuse is everywhere, as is child abuse. I'm not unique. But it's a hard thing to talk about, and there are children out there in adult bodies who, they can't bond, they can't connect.